Don't Be Long, Little Bird is a story that folds time, memory, and identity into one haunting encounter. Reem Jubran is a Palestinian-American filmmaker whose work was selected among the winners of Focus Features and JetBlue Student Short Film Showcase of 2025, earning her recognition for her bold and poetic approach to storytelling. This week on Rawy Talks, we talk with Reem about her captivating short film, Don't Be Long, Little Bird. We explore how Reem uses surreal storytelling to speak about loss, resistance, and the inherited trauma of displacement, and how cinema can be used as a form of remembering. I'm your host, Hazem Adbouli, and this is Rawy Talks. Hi, Reem.
Hi.
Welcome to Rawy.
Thank
I'm
you.
very happy to have you. Today, I want to start by talking about your short film, Don't Be Long, Little Bird, which, full disclaimer, I was part of the art department, so I was involved in the project. But I want to start with the logistics of the film and how this film was made, or in better words, where it was shot. It was shot between California and Palestine. So I wanted you to talk about that specifically, and just basically tell us how that decision came about.
Yes, of course. First of all, thank you for having me, Hazem. Good to see you again. We shot the film about 20% in California, the rest in Palestine. As people will see, there's time travel involved in the film. So the character literally jumps through time and ends up in Palestine. So the locations I chose in California were specific geographies and landscapes that every time I go and visit those places, I'm reminded of Palestine. The type of fruit and the vegetables that are grown in those areas are same to the ones that are grown in Palestine. So I was trying to create visual parallels and touch upon the experience of being Palestinian in California and this kind of life of always looking for Palestine, wherever you are. And it was wonderful shooting in Ojai. You were there. You remember its beauty, breathtaking openness, sense of freedom. And then we shot in Palestine, in Batir, 1 month later after wrapping the Ojai unit. Batir is in Beit Lahem region. Although the film takes place in Ramallah, because that's where my grandmother was from, I'm basing it off of her. We shot in Beit Lahem in a similar landscape because there's less, it's more untouched. Ramallah is now expanded city, so.
That's good. I actually will expand on that because you're Palestinian-American, as you mentioned. The film takes place in Ramallah, which is the birthplace of your grandmother. The name of the protagonist or the main character in your film is Reema, which basically is your name. I wanted to know how much of the story is basically coming from Reem Jubran's experience and story herself.
Yeah, that's a great question. And Reema was selected because it has a really nice sing-song to it. And yes, it does sound like my name. But you are correct. This film is based off of my experience being Palestinian in America. I am first generation born in California to Palestinian family. And I was raised in a small beach town in Southern California where I never felt comfortable in my environment. Not once growing up did I feel comfortable outside of my family or family friends. And so growing up as a teenager, I wanted to get out of the United States. I had carried a skepticism of American society, American culture with me from a young age. And I was very aware of that from a young age, of who I was, where I came from, thanks to my family's style of upbringing. And when I reached the age of 17, I was graduating high school and I wanted to take a year off before going into college. And I wanted to go on this gap year program in Ecuador, which is what the character wants to do in the film. And my family rejected the idea. I worked really hard to convince them. I managed to get a scholarship, partial scholarship, not even full. And my family particularly my mom and my eldest sister, saw right through the program. And a lot of the dialogue from the movie is straight out of my mom and sister's mouths. And they were right. Their skepticism of these NGOs that go and build schools, I mean, it wasn't my path. It definitely was not my path, because these organizations may have spoken to a naive young 17-year-old girl who wants to get out and have means of living in another place that isn't her country. But she would have been participating in some American form of, savior missionary movement, which is not who I am and it's not who I was supposed to be. So my family pivoted my plans and sent me to Palestine. I enrolled in Birzeit University, the Palestine and Arabic Studies program, where I studied Arabi for the first time, like professionally. And I studied Palestinian history, and that's when my life changed. It was my first visit to Palestine, and it was everything I needed as a confused young woman. And a young woman coming out of 17 years upbringing in Southern California, being raised amongst bratty American beach kids. And so I really needed this, I needed to be plucked out of that environment and put where I belong. And I just loved every minute of it. I was so emotional and poetic about the whole thing. I was like, this is the air I was meant to breathe. And طبعا there's a bit of romanticization with Palestinians going to Palestine for the first time, but Khalina, you know what I mean? Let us fall in love. And I was falling in love, and that love is still as bright as it was from the first time I went, and it always will be. So
it's a really good way to actually put a lot of the emotions that I felt while watching the film, because for me, it was a story about this girl. When she time travels, they keep calling her the lost one, أو تايهة. But then the whole movie is also about connection. It's this extreme contrast between this character who seems so lost, who's lost in a conversation with her mom. She's lost about her identity. She wants to connect, but then there is deep connection in that loss, and it almost felt as if she's healing, but she's even healing her own grandmother, during her experiences, kind of basically telling her everything is going to be okay. So I think that the way you're also articulating how you found connection based on, you wanted to do something and you were not encouraged to do it, and that's kind of a loss of its own. But then through it, another experience came about that kind of enhanced connection for you.
I think exactly. It was meant to pivot in that direction, and it helped me understand what I needed to do, because I had the emotional motivation. I had the right intention of traveling and serving others in need, just participating. I wanted to do everything that the classic American teen. I wanted to do the opposite of what they did. I didn't want to go to college and go to the dorms and, have the system rewire my brain to whatever profession they wanted me to do. No, I wanted to go and live. And to have been sent to Palestine, I also wanted to go to Palestine. The way my family raised me was always, Palestine, we help our people, we support. It's a whole environment that I was raised in. But that experience alone, and then my tete at that time was so proud. She was so proud that I was going to Ramallah. She told everyone. She goes, binti fi Ramallah, binti fi Ramallah. And that pride, that Ramallah pride was deeply sewn into me. So it was nice to play with that, to give that some attention for myself. And I'm happy to have honored her in that way, and to have honored my family and who they are. So yes, in its root, it's a very Palestinian-American film in a way.
We talked a little bit about continuity. The landscape aspect of this is that you picked Ohio because it reminded you of Palestine, and basically you shot in Palestine. Can you maybe speak about coordinating shoot here in the US, basically in California, and also a shoot in Palestine? The purpose behind this question is that I honestly want to always provide some tools for people who dream of making their own films and thinking that, logistics are a nightmare. They're a huge part of the film. And I thought that with you it was such a success because you were able to do it. So I wanted you to speak about that experience from like the technicalities of it and like the specificity of it.
So this film indeed was a thesis film, my final project at UCLA. I was getting my master's in filmmaking. UCLA's program did provide me with some funding for my film and a support system of a network of crew members. So the crew that I had in Los Angeles region, partially UCLA students that wanted to volunteer, that wanted to support the film, and the other part were people that from my own community, like you, my sisters, my cousins. I gathered anyone who was willing to help with the film, whether they had experience or not. I have also years of filmmaking experience from Palestine that I did, so I carry that with me into my UCLA experience, and I carry it with me on set to explain a bit. After graduating from university, my undergraduate degree, I worked 2 years in Palestine as assistant director. And those experiences, working on set, one set after the other, in a variety of environments for a variety of filmmakers, that was my real film school. I went to UCLA so that I can be in front of the camera because I didn't know how to create that for myself. I came in and everyone was learning how to do production. I was like, y'all are spoiled here. Try to make a movie in Palestine. And I would literally tell this to them. So I will always be grateful for the experiences I had in Palestine, teaching me how to make movies and how to not make films. Creating the environment I needed to in the US unit was very easy, because I knew what my limits were. I knew how to also treat my community well and to how this is truly a collaborative effort. Even though we only shot for 1.5 days, it was still, we had to travel. There was a lot of logistics involved. We were out in nature. There was no sheltering. It was very raw, which is how this is how I like to make films. I like to be out in the open. I like to capture natural locations, on location. I'm not much of a let's build a set kind of girl. I was very intentional with creating an environment that reflected what I believe filmmaking is about. And I knew I didn't have to follow other people's patterns or styles of filmmaking. Because those patterns and styles, I don't agree with them. People who can afford to volunteer. People who can't afford to volunteer are paid. Feed your crew well, treat them well, respect the hours, things like that basic things that aren't respected. I really worked hard to respect them. So I was pleased with those results, and I think it shows in the work that I present to you. Then logistically speaking, having 2 units was a lot for me, but it wasn't impossible. Like, nothing's impossible when you want to shoot abroad. You just have to kind of brace yourself you just have to brace yourself and have a lot of patience, because you're managing two sets at the same time. Just fill your time wisely, and that's exactly what my strategy was. And years of working as an assistant director, it served me in the way where I can schedule with my eyes closed. So that served me big time. I wasn't lost. I never found myself lost in, what do I need to do now? No, I always knew what needed to be done at that time. So I think what I would advise to any young filmmakers is get experience on set as much as you can. If you can afford it, to volunteer, if you can afford to get paid gigs, just do it, say yes to everything. Because understanding the mechanics, the harmony on set is everything you need to direct one. I always view directing and filmmaking like conducting an orchestra. You have to pretty much know what each musician, what each instrument is playing and what its role is. So that was my philosophical approach. And then shooting in Palestine, I really did brace myself indeed, because it is no easy feat to shoot in Palestine, and I respect all the filmmakers that live and reside in Palestine with the highest esteem, because the conditions there are really difficult. Occupation, people can barely serve, they can barely navigate their lives normally. You want to make a movie? Yeah, you want to make a movie, but and be prepared for the worst to happen. And so, but I wasn't afraid, because I had those 2 years of filmmaking behind me. I had established a network of amazing people already from the time that I had lived there. And I knew what I was signing up for. So there weren't any surprises. And again, it was all about picking the right people, leaning on your friends, leaning on your community. It's not about hiring and yelling at people. It's not about money. It never was and never will be about money.
Some people stayed within both of two units. I believe you've had some people that basically did not change across your
Two
team.
people.
Two people.
Yeah, I chose to keep. There were two American people. One was the cinematographer, which is preferred for a film that shoots across countries. You don't really want to change up cinematographers, because it will create a shift in your style and your workflow. And then the line producer from the USA unit AD'd the unit in Palestine. And I made that decision so that it was a difficult decision, because preferably I would have worked with an AD from Palestine that speaks the language and understands the pacing of things in Palestine. But I think that, Matt, his name is Matt Johnson. He's an amazing crew member. He can crew any position and do a wonderful job. And he's very devoted to the film. But I chose him to kind of have the key crew triangle maintain the UCLA system, and it really worked out in the end. But yeah, those were the only two people that stayed, as well as my sister and one of my best friends. Yeah, I actually had a whole, I had a whole posse of family come with me. And you need it when you're doing difficult things. You need a support system. So
this was I think a very emotional film for you. I mean, we just talked about like how personal the story is, which is going to take me to my next question. So you basically are a surfer girl. Again, you're a California girl. You have a collective of your own called the Natal Waves, which basically like is a surfer group. This film has no men in it. It's all female based. Almost, I want to say, I mean, I worked on the crews. Like I also know the crew is probably like maybe 30% male, 70% female. It's amazing, because you're creating that space for people that represent you, and you know, you've done such a beautiful job with the film. But I wanted to ask you a question that was on my mind because of my conversation with Ola last week. Is that Ola was also saying that one of the main projects of Film Lab Palestine is to produce films for women that speak about women and by women. And she was personally referring to the experience of women in Gaza, obviously, that have lost their support system, and that support system is their men, is their husbands, and like the breadwinners of the family. And so they have an added pressure. But I wanted to also speak about like generally the story of like the Palestinian women and you wanting to center that and basically making that intentional decision that your film is all about women and it's about the female experience. And when the protagonist or the main character travels to Palestine, she talks to her grandma who's getting married, who's kind of against the idea that she was not enthusiastically getting married. And it just felt it's not only a project about memory and, folding time and all of these things, but it's also about the resistance to cultural norms and understanding that there is specific experiences that we still have not really spoken about for, Palestinian people.
Right. Yeah, I'd love to speak upon this. Like you said, it's an all-female cast. Majority crew were women as well, which I'm very happy with. It created a very harmonious environment for everyone, but it happened very naturally that way. And I think that fact lends itself to what the film is about indeed, because this film is a love letter to my grandmother. It's a love letter to Palestine. I view Palestine as a very feminine place. When I refer to her, I always refer to her as like she. But besides that, the film, I have always been obsessed with the women in my family. It's a very female-dominated family. I'm one of 4 sisters. That's the world I come from. It's very female-dominated. I always have been obsessed with the women, like the ancestral maternal lineage. My great-grandmother, when I hear family stories, I always ask about my great-grandmothers, like, how did they birth 11 children? How did they mentally handle that? I would ask random questions that, kind of were overlooked. But what I was having a lot of fun with was exploring what I call the Holy Trinity, which is the grandmother, the mother, and the daughter. This was the environment that I was raised in, and I can't have imagined my life in any other way, because these women, all the women that raised me and the women that came before, all somehow were challenging the norms around them. For example, Teta Nelly, my teta, the one who I'm speaking to in this film, she was a strong woman. She was like the first or second woman to drive in Libya back in the day. She was always leading women and creating spaces for them to join, to have conversations, to eat, to enjoy, etc. My mother also, she's an amazing woman, and I respect her to every level. And my aunt, for example, she's a leader in her society, founder of Arab Film Festival. I'm just bragging about the women in my family, but that's
That's
where
beautiful.
I'm coming from, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because that's your experience, and that's where this
yes.
inspiration is also coming from.
Yes. I also, when I look at Palestinian women, the ones that raised me, the friends that I have back home, the women I see in Gaza, all of them, they're all so incredibly strong. And I know that they don't have a choice, but they carry it with so much grace. They carry it with so much maturity and naturalness. And I respect it to the highest level, because I know that when tragedy hits your life, it really tests your will. It tests your will. And these women, you can't tell that they're being tested. And that's something that the world does not see or respect. And I don't understand how people don't respect that. And so as I was approaching my late 20s, I was like, man, I wish Teta was around. I wish I could talk to her about these things. And that's pretty much why I wrote the film, in a way. And so I said, okay, if there's anything I can do that is truthful to who I am and where I come from and what I know about Palestine, what I know based off of my travels there, my time living there, and my own ancestry, it is that it is okay. It is okay to want something different than what you're supposed to, what you're born into. It's okay that my teta didn't want to get married at a young age. She's not oppressed. She's not, thinking about what white feminists think we need to be saved. We need to go have jobs. No. She just had ideas for herself. She wanted to write literature. She wanted to study. That's okay for a young woman who has ideas and wants to explore what that means to her. And I respect that completely, that also Rima, the teta in the film, wanted to live by the sea. Of course, she's obsessed with the sea. Who isn't obsessed with the sea? Who isn't always seduced by it and curious of its spirit? it's a human experience. And so it's very simple. It's just very simple that any young girl would say, you know what? No, I don't want to marry a stranger, guys. I'm going to consider running away, which is what I wanted to do as a teenager too. And so I relate. These women are always seeking, يعني, they have to survive in new places where they don't know anybody. And they had no choice but to be strong and have 1,000 children. Okay, I respect all of that. I have all of this opportunity to do whatever I need to do. What am I going to do with my life then? What am I going to do with all of that? I better honor them with all of my heart.
I mean, that's beautifully put, and I think that's what I wanted to get from that question. Honestly, is like for you to speak about womanhood and like specifically Palestinian womanhood. I'm gonna kind of switch gears a little bit and mention your first short film, Mariam.
Yes.
We have not spoken about it today, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to speak about it because I also know it's a beautiful. I have not seen it. I'm very upset that I haven't seen it yet. So please send me a link to watch it. But please speak about your experience with Mariam, even if just briefly. I'd love for you to talk about it.
Yeah, I'd love to. Mariam was a class project. It's a predecessor of Don't Be Long. It's about three men, a grandfather, a father, and son. And it takes place in an American town, and it's about the relationships. It's about a grandfather who struggles with Alzheimer's, and his grandson is his caretaker, and the father is working a security job. You know, the pressure is on him to bring funds and support the family. And the son has his own agenda that he's also curious about life, and he loves to dance, and he loves to dance in drag, which is a wonderful thing to do. The film is really about how he relates to his grandfather and his father and the pressure of those relationships. And it's also about how he discovers that his deep desire of dancing and performing is in his blood. His grandmother was a dancer, which is something that was super taboo and haram at that time that she lived in. But he can embrace it and kind of release that need within him. So the film's really about love, generational love, and it comes from my experience when my grandfather's health declined and taking care of him. My own father played the role of the father because
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yes, fun fact. You'll see my dad. Shout out Baba. I'm lucky to have a family that supports my work because I don't think everyone has that, especially in roles like this. But my father was, he was acting from experience, coming from a very repressed place as an Arab man who showed up to America in his 20s and was told what to do and never really had a chance to create his own path either. So I hope this film, I hope it speaks to people of all backgrounds and of all family types. But at the end of the day, it's a film about family and love and self-acceptance. So yeah, please, it's not really available online, but I hope it will be one day. Maybe this will help it find a home.
You spoke about your experience in Palestine related to filmmaking, and I was wondering if that has anything to do with you working with director Anne-Marie Jasser. Do you want to tell us about your involvement with Wajib and anything you want to say about Wajib specifically?
I would love to. Wajib was the first Palestinian feature film I worked on. I was 23 years old. I showed up to Palestine with very little money. I actually did come to Palestine with very little. I had just completed an artist residency and I moved to Haifa and I was putting it out there. I was like, hey guys, I want to work in movies. I want to work in movies. Just throwing it out there at bars and stuff. And then I got a call from someone I know and he said, hey, do you want to work on Anne-Marie Jasser's next film? And I said, yes, I'm there. So I was so happy and honored. And I took the job and I gave it my all. It was a whirlwind of an adventure. Like, people should watch the film. It's an amazing experience as an audience member to experience the invitation process of a Palestinian wedding. And behind the scenes, I was second AD, 40 bit rolls to manage, 2 locations per day, shooting on location in Nasr, in Nazareth, and it was the ultimate film school experience. And Anne-Marie was so gracious with my work, and she took me in, and I claimed her as, a life mentor. I always, I don't know how many mentees she has, but whether she knows it or not, I'll always be one of them. Hey, Anne-Marie. And now I'm so proud of her, seeing Palestine 36 come out, which I think is going to be like the pinnacle of her career. It looks absolutely insane. And she deserves every joy of what this film will bring her and her audiences. I learned a lot observing her on set, observing her style with actors, Saleh Bakri and his father, observing how she deals with the stresses of shooting in Palestine, the amazing crew that she was able to gather. I made lifelong friends, people that I collaborate with till this day. So honestly, it was an experience of a lifetime, and I will always be grateful for it.
Beautiful. What's next for Reem Jubran?
Well, right now, switching gears a little bit, assistant editing on a documentary about Gaza. So okay. My heart is with that right now. It's nice to dabble a bit in journalism-based film. I feel lucky that I can contribute to a film about Gaza, being so far away and separated from their struggles, like on a daily basis. But I now sit with them and watch them every day, so I feel very fortunate to do that. But personally, I am developing a feature doc about my family, using archival footage from Libya, from the 60s, of where they started after the Nakba, till now where we are today in California, because I come from a lineage of like non-official filmmakers and documentarians in the family. So I think I'm going to play around a lot with this and tell a story that spans as early as the Nakba. So I'm really excited for that.
That's really exciting. I can't wait to watch that. Thank you so much, Reem, for your time. And excited to see what you do next.
Thank you, Hazem. Thanks for having me.
This was our conversation with Reem Jubran, the filmmaker behind Don't Be Long Little Bird. You can watch the short film on YouTube for free. This was another episode of Rawy Talks. I'm your host, Hazem Makbouli. Rawy Talks is produced by Rawy Films, graphic design by Omar Rifat, and music by El Mukh, titled Hay Al Ashgar. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next episode.